Hey guys, welcome Musky Road Rules Podcast and Patreon. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening on the podcast. And thanks for becoming a member on the Patreon page. Guys, we've got a lot of cool stuff that we've been doing so far this winter, and we've got a ton more coming up. Spring is here, talking to guys that are actually fishing a little bit and also talking a little trips, little tricks, I mean. Guys, the one thing that I want to talk about tonight is, in the springtime or any time of year, for you guys that like to troll or getting into the trolling game, the one element of it that seems to give people some trouble is the planer boards. And planer boards are a big part of trolling and something that I use quite a bit, and a lot of the more successful anglers out there do it. But they're really, to set a planer board up as a musky worthy and usable planer board is something that I think is worthy to talk about. So I've got a guy who's a damn good troller on here tonight, who uses a lot of planer boards. I've got my friend Vance Kaloz on here with us tonight. And Vance,
how you guys
doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. You're fishing right now. You've got out on the water some. We're recording this in early April. What has been, or how has the season been for you so far? I would assume you're probably just getting started.
Yeah, I'm just getting started. I started on the 27th of March, so it's been about like 7 straight days of charters now. And it's everything the spring has to offer. We're fighting weather, we're fighting wind, all that good stuff. Water clarity.
What kind of water clarity do you have right now? I mean, for us, we have everything from mud to about 2-foot visibility.
Yeah, with the recent weather and the wind directions, we've been fishing a lot of mud. I actually feel like I'm on Cave Run.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. And what lakes do you primarily spend your time on, Vance?
So in the springtime, from about the end of March until the end of May, I'm at Conneaut Lake in Pennsylvania, Pymatuning Lake in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and then a couple other little kettle lakes that are around the area that I could jump to. They're about a half an hour away from one another, and pretty fortunate because of that. So if I feel like you want to be on a spot specifically at points in the spring. If I feel like it's going to get blown out, there's always other options to hop to other lakes for that day. So I'm pretty fortunate in that regard. When we
yeah, that's something that down here we just don't have that option. Now we do have the option of where with Cave Run being a pretty good sized lake and it being a reservoir, so it's kind of vast as far as the hollers and the rivers go. You do have the option of going to different areas of the lake, and sometimes that's all it. I mean, you'll have different watercolors throughout the whole system just because of where the rain is, what the pull is, and all of that. So, it's something that we deal with down here a lot. But, to be able to go into a whole new different lake, that's something we just don't have. We do have other lakes. It's just there's really nothing that's feasible to do during a day. They're all, it's 2-hour drive, and and you can do it. The problem is that you're going to spend a lot of time and money and gas, and that's
it's a free day all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's just you've done nothing that day, and that's really hard. You can't do it.
Yeah, I've done it where I've launched the boat 4 times in a day before to try to. It's just eating at you, because you launch in an area and then you just kind of see the clarity changing, or something's coming, like a mud line that I really don't want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've launched the boat 4 times, going to the other lakes even, and I'm just like, this day is this is non-profitable, but this is now a pride thing. We are going to get this down.
I've been there, man. There.
We actually did that, and we on the 4th launch in the first drift, we caught like a 32-inch muskie, and I acted like I had the world record. I went crazy because I was dying inside to get this thing
It is,
going.
yeah. I've done it, and I know what you're saying. It's an awful feeling, and it
Oh,
just at the end of the day, it's just stubbornness, and there no one else is, it's everyone. Yeah, they're happy they caught a fish, but no one has the elation you do that. Oh shit, it finally worked.
it worked, yeah, for
I
sure.
totally get that. Um, the how are you going after the fish right now? I mean, what is your all's presentation, and what have the few fish that you've gotten, what has worked?
So this time of year in the lakes that I target, it's really I'm targeting the shallows for staging muskies that are getting ready to go through the paces of spawning.
Sure.
I know they really don't do it up here. It doesn't connect but they still, of course, go through the motions of spawning. So I'm targeting shallow areas, shallow flats, sand beaches, things like that. And when I'm casting, I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to beat up the shoreline as best as I can. Get those baits pretty much on that water line and bring it back to the boat. So it's a shallow bite for me, still fishing conventionally with casting and trolling.
Yeah. What kind of lures are you running?
Well, when I'm casting, I'm using, what I make, obviously gliders and jerk baits and things like that. I always think this time of year when you're fishing in, say, colder water temperatures, um, I want something that takes a while to get back to the bait. If you
Mhm.
think of like just say like a spinner comes back in this way, straight to you. But if you're using a glide, you can cover that area a lot longer.
Mhm.
Um, and give that fish a chance to make a decision just for a second more, and that's sometimes what it takes. But slower presentation, shallows, things like that. When I'm trolling, I'm using small stuff. I want something that um, there you go. I want
Trying to
something. Yeah,
I'm trying to focus. It's
uh,
turning into a proof of life video,
it is.
and I got really blurry there because I bent back in my chair.
Yeah,
So
God forbid you get comfortable.
my camera's trying to make me, I don't know. Lord, stop it. Come on. There's my hand. Come on. Oh,
There it
there I
is.
am.
There he is.
Oh my God. I look better blurry.
No, it's good.
Yeah, but no.
But
Okay,
so
go
so
on.
like trolling, I'll use small stuff. I'm using my number one A is like mini meatballs, things like that.
Okay.
Small stuff. Um, of course, Wileys.
Uh-huh.
Those the little 5-inch killers, straights and jointeds. Um, Greg them's mini extremes.
Hmm.
Technically, what I'm like trying to do if I'm running a trolling spread is I want something that gets away from the boat. Like when I'm short line trolling in these shallows, like when I say shallow, it's about 4 or 5 foot of water, something like that.
Hmm.
And even trying to get it up on the bank, I want the bait to not dive as deep and still have a decent amount of line out, so it kind of gets away from the boat a little bit. So those lures will do that. They're meant to do that, and they're that's my spread pretty much when I'm trolling.
Do you got any you guys got any weeds starting right now or anything, or is it still a little early?
It's a little early. It's kind of like last year's dead weeds that I'm fishing that I'm pulling off hooks and stuff like that. That stuff
Yeah.
that likes to stay on your hook. That's like hair weed. It's terrible. It takes a while to come off. So
Hmm.
I'm noticing like in one of the lakes that I fish, which is a natural kettle lake. That's Conneaut Lake. It's about 1,000 acres, probably about 800 is fishable, but that fish is a lot like the lake that I fish up north in Chautauqua Lake. It's weedy and things like that, but you can see the new growth happening there.
Is Conneaut, that's where your state record's from, correct?
It is, yeah, and
But is that a
I think
but
it's the
is
longest running record.
Yeah, is that, I mean, do you think it's legit, or do you think it's,
I don't know. I
because
mean,
a lot of the old records, I know that have been,
yeah,
because
you
it's from
test
what, the 50s?
No, it's from the 20s. So it like just
Oh,
turned like 100 some years old,
oh,
maybe
Jesus.
101 years old. Yeah. It's the
Wow.
longest one running. So you never know like how they did things back then. You see
Mhm.
photos of it, and of course we can like say that, this doesn't look like that and blah blah
Sure.
blah. But I don't know. If it's a fishing story, so be it. There's a bar set for it, and it's something like 54 pounds, 57 inches. But
Yeah, I
what I think about that is me, I've never come close to that here.
mhm,
The
mhm,
anglers that I know never touched it,
mhm.
so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
maybe, maybe not, but
Well, it was like here in Kentucky with we had the world record smallmouth down at Del Hollow, and then finally the guy goes before he dies and was like, "Oh yeah, there's an OMC. There's a couple of bearings in there, probably a spark plug, and and
yeah.
just it was total bullshit."
No,
And
he was a
uh,
trailblazer.
yeah, a lot of these and a lot of these old records. I mean, let's face it. I'm not knocking the guys, but that was back in the time when who cared,
Yeah,
right?
it's back in the time before we had any of these cameras and stuff, and I
Eh,
really don't care
mhm.
about it at all.
No, I don't either, and it's more of a thing of these records are they were set at a time. It's hard to disprove unless
Yeah,
somebody actually says it. It's
I feel,
just and
I
there
feel
was
like I
there
feel like
was
they don't do much for you. I
they don't. I
I feel
don't
like it
think.
just makes you like more hated.
Yeah, it just, yeah, it
So
just somebody hates you even more on the internet.
yeah,
I mean, it basically is
that's
it.
it.
And it doesn't take a lot to get hated more on the internet.
Yeah, true.
Um,
Like the
and
like the video that just broke recently about the charter captain that was yelling at people, or actually boarded that boat down in Florida.
I didn't see that.
Oh, you have to look this. I mean, just open up your phone after this and you'll see it. The guy went crazy and on another fisherman and jumped on his boat and was screaming. And it was a kid. It was
Oh,
crazy.
Jesus. Probably some dude that just had a really bad day.
Very bad day fishing. But he turned from like, I think he took pressure off the people that got caught walleye fishing, stuffing weights in them, like you
Yeah,
were just
yeah,
talking.
yeah.
So like they're the second most hated people, and now he's number one right
Now
now.
he's number one.
Me and you,
Nice.
me and you might, we're there. We might be top 50, but
There
we'll
you
work
go.
on that.
There you go. Well, it's everybody that has, no other time in history does everyone have a camera in their pocket,
Yeah,
and it could go anywhere. Why did I go blurry again? I moved. Come on. Oh, there we go.
there you go.
So let's talk about this. You are doing some trolling early in the year, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
this time of year, one of the things is making a somewhat of a spread. What's the rod regs for you?
So like, what sizes do I use and what companies?
No, 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 no. The regulations as far as like
Oh,
what
the
how many
reg. Oh,
rods?
oh, I thought you said rigs. So yeah, the regulations is it's three a person in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I can run three in angler. What I usually run on a trip when I'm short lining is anywhere from 6 to 8, but it's usually 8.
Okay. So how many of those rods are you on the 8 are you running on boards?
4 of them.
Okay, so you got 4 board rods out and you're using the offshore series of boards.
I am, yes.
Okay, so let's bring this up here. No, that was the wrong button to hit. Come on, why are you not coming up? Right there. Well,
Yep.
look, that's a traditional offshore series board. They're for guys that don't know and you can't and you're not looking at this. It is the yellow planer board with the little um, um, red flag that sticks up. And why do you like these boards?
Well, it's just what I became comfortable with when I got into to fishing, and then when I was younger and like fishing for walleyes with my uncles and stuff, they used these.
Hmm.
So it was something that I was just always cozy with using. There were a couple other options at the time. I think like church boards, and there's
Church
actually
is a Church is a big brand. They were the
Mhm.
ones that came out with the first bigger musky board, I think.
Yeah.
inline board. They had the TX44s,
Yeah.
and you could pull, you could pull a big bait like a 12-inch slammer. You could pull a headlock, a matlock, and that was. But now you're using just regular walleye boards.
I'm using what's called the OR12. That's what they're called. Now they make a bigger model, and I think they call it the mag. But I'm rarely trolling things that are that large off of boards. And even if I put a big bait on that, on the OR like walleye board, at worst, it acts as a stern planer. It'll just pull that all the way back, but it's away, and so that's what I'm doing. But when I'm in the spring, I want them to plane out very nicely, and obviously, I'm using smaller baits. I mean, you could even consider the baits walleye style baits, so that they plane out very nicely. The OR12s. That's what I do.
Yeah. No, they do, and it makes a nice spread. When you're out there. So let's show there. You've got a board, don't you? A new board
I do. So I have a new board right here in the packaging.
I'm going to go to my Wheel of Fortune view.
Yeah, right on.
I love this, Pat. I would love to buy that leather.
This is beautiful.
That leather ottoman over there is awesome. I have, is that a Davenport? Give me the white Davenport for the study.
Those are great. That's what we all have, are studies when we're musky anglers.
Oh course. Yes, studies, and smoking rooms.
Yeah, that of course, yeah.
So that's in the package right there.
This is in the package. I always carry extra. When you're any type of fisherman, you have backups and all that stuff. But this is what it comes with. The OR 12. It's pretty much set up for walleyes. So it's their medium-sized board. It comes with a little clip up here and that red clip in the back. And that's how, when you order one, that's how they come. They're small. I mean, we have baits that are bigger than this, but they're very effective.
Yeah, and then how do you modify that board to do what you want it to do?
So when I modify these boards, when you first open them up out of the package, you're going to notice this orange clip. This does not work well in musky fishing, especially if you're using braid. A lot of people use braid in the Great Lakes. Some people use mono, but however, with how hard the musky baits pull, this orange clip is pretty much ineffective. You can see it there. If
you're using mono, it'll stick. A mono would stick in there. But if
braid wants to cut braid wants to cut and slip and all that good stuff. So it's just a little bit more beefy. And so I just usually end up pitching these things. I keep the red one though. Those are pretty good.
Hold it up a little higher to show that red. There you go.
That red one I keep on for sure.
Now, kind of explain how the red, because I think it's got the tooth in it.
It does. So I can show that in this board here, which is still wet from today. I'll hold this up, but there's a little tube there's a tooth there. That you could see. And that stops the braid from slipping if you do a wrap around it. Now that orange clip doesn't have that at all. It's just two rubber pads on it. So that's where that braid is going to run through. So I always keep this red one on the back. That little nodule or whatever piece you want to call it there, that stops that braid from slipping. It's also that wrap that you do around it is probably one of the more intimidating things to do when you're starting to get into planer boards and running them, because if you don't have a successful wrap around that, your boards can fall off, and then all of a sudden you're chasing after them and things like that. So I love
that.
Yeah, that's the best. I've even had them do that with a perfect wrap, but that's usually user error on me because I haven't changed out that. One thing you do need to recognize on these though, with the braid pulling all the time, there's 2 rubber pads in here as well. They will wear eventually, and that's how I usually have. That's when I usually I'm chasing boards, and I have to replace that. And it just does. It takes nothing but a pair of split ring pliers to apply a new one. And clips, these red clips, they're easily available. You can buy them all over the internet, and I suggest when you do get into trolling that you have extras on the boat. For
Yes.
sure.
No, you need to have the extra clips and stuff, and they work really really nice. Now you're changing the actual main clip too.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So this orange one I said I just take off and I disregard. There is a piece that I replace. So it's real simple to take this thing off. It's just a nut and bolt, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Take it off. And of course, there's this thing that you could buy additionally, and it is called an OR18, and it's specifically made for these offshore boards. But as you can see, it's a little bit beefier, and you can hear that snap down, and it clamps onto that braid really, really nicely. So when I'm going to do a troll and set a bait out, you set your line length, your depth, where you want to be, stick that braid right in there, close that down. That's your first step. And then you come around to that piece and you do your loop on this. And that loop has to wrap around that little red nodule there. And that thing will stick on there until it doesn't, if you run it for 1,000 hours and then you're chasing stuff down. But
yeah, and the thing with planer boards too, you're talking about popping off and stuff. In the spring, if you're trolling a little bit slower or something, the slower you go, the easier they stay on. Once you start adding speed, that's when you really need to make sure they're locked on there, because that's along with the bait pulling, that's a big part. And then also wind.
Yes.
Wind and waves will pop a board off very, very fast.
Yeah, they could bury on you and things of that nature. What the nice thing about the OR18 is it has an adjustment for tightness. You can tighten this thing up essentially to where it won't close just with this little screw here, little Phillips head. I keep it somewhere in the middle. But you don't want it to be too loose that line, when you clamp that down, still moves. You want it to be solid and stop.
Yeah.
For sure. But you don't want it tight enough where it, of course you can't close it. But so it's a feeling out process. However, it's imperative when you're trolling with this style board to get this piece, this OR18. And sometimes when you buy that, they come with this little, this is just one that came out of the package. So this thing I'm unscrewing here is basically like the male female part that you just tighten down, and you clip it right onto this board. It's really simple. What I do is I take a little nut to it, and sometimes they come with that, sometimes they don't. It was weird when I was ordering them, like in the past 4 years. Some had the plastic, some had the nut on there. These obviously are more stable and will
That's
never
a nylock.
move.
That's a nylock nut.
Yep.
Yeah, lock nut. Yeah.
And so I prefer to use that in a pinch. If like something happens on the water, I have both options. And obviously that little black piece is easier to use. And if you ever want to make it like it so it doesn't move on you, you can always put a little Loctite in there, and it'll be good to go. But I just use that as like a backup if something goes wrong on there.
Sure.
But this piece is everything when you're running this style board. You got to have a solid clip up here, because you just do not want those things, flying off. And that's probably the main complaint about planer boards is, I put them on, they didn't work. I was chasing after them, and I've done it before too. I've had so much wind that they fell off, and I knew that they were going to blow to shore, and I just let them blow to shore, and I was like, I'll just go and get this after the charter, the heck with it.
Yeah.
And I'll just grab a backup and run it for now, because I'm not going to go to the shore that is getting wind blown in my boat and, have to pick that up via the water. I'd probably bottom out and have some unhappy people.
Oh, exactly.
Mhm.
And the other thing with boards too is it's kind of a two-man, a two-man operation. So like here you sent me some video of
Keep going, dude.
guy
going,
cranking
yeah.
a fish in
Keep going.
It's a good sound.
and just throwing that, and getting, having somebody to take the board off is big.
Keep going, dude.
Oh yeah. That's also a big one. This young man.
My God! Look at that!
Oh, he's excited.
Yeah. That was
He's
great.
excited.
But
No.
I had to reach around the motor there and do a little, open-handed netting.
Yeah, but
It's funny,
being able to, have somebody there, when you're trying to take the board off yourself, that sucks.
Oh, if you're solo, yeah.
Yeah,
If you're
I mean,
solo, that's a tough position to be in to still keep tension on the fish and the line and take that thing off at the same time.
yeah.
And
that's I get that. And here's another one here of you guys.
Oh, this one I just disregard the board. Watch this. Right in the water.
Yeah, I know you're getting ready to throw it in. But that one there, you can see, guys, if you're watching this, popping that front clip is huge to get it off the front of the line. Mm-hmm. And then the back one is pretty easy. You just squeeze it and the line pops right out. Yeah. So it's such a good system. And we'll back this up here. And yeah, this is the one you just threw right in the water.
Yeah.
It comes up. Whoop.
See you later.
Yeah. That
fish is more important at the time.
Nice.
We cut it short there before some choice words were said, but obviously you can draw it at points, when you're trying to put clients on fish, you have to do things like that, like drop it because it's not so important. That particular fish I remember was tiny, but I had like 3 people on the boat that day, and 2 of them were guides, and the guy that was reeling in that video was a greenhorn with it. It was his first time, so I'm trying to instruct him on like what to do, teach him. These other guys are just chirping at him the whole time. He gets a nice one on, and it gets off. Fish just get off. But the other guys were saying like, "Oh, you got to keep tension," and blah blah blah. They're screaming at him. And I pulled him over in the boat, and I was just like, "Hey, just listen to me. It's all good." So that was actually like at the end of the day. So it was really cool. It was again like a 30-inch fish, but he got his musky and
sure.
But that's what you have to do sometimes, with those boards. And when you're taking them off, it's also intimidating. The 2-person job is great. There are some boards in the industry where it's just kind of a 1-button push and everything comes loose. I believe that would be, your better option if you're solo. But when you're, say you're out with a buddy or a fellow angler and you're trolling, that person that's getting the board off, you want to try to get ahead of that board. You want to think ahead, like I'm going to grab it here, and always keep tension on that line while you're getting that board. You want to just
and you want to do it fast.
Yeah, you want to do it quickly because you want to keep that tension, because when you grab that board, you're you could lose tension, and of course you can't reel a board through the eyelets of your rod.
Yeah.
So you always want to try to reach out a little bit, whether it means backing your buddy up into the cockpit or wherever on your boat, so you can get that extra reach out. And I'll tell a lot of clients to just, if we get one on these boards, I'm going to have to take it off, and I might ask you to back up, towards the console or onto the front casting platform, anything like that. And another thing, with when you're choosing a board rod, you want something that's semi-stiff that keeps them out there to plane. You know, you need
Sure.
a little stiffness in the tip.
What are you using?
So right now, what I'm using I run St. Croix.
Mm-hmm.
But they are very givey in the tip at points. So I would always recommend an 8-foot rod. I picked up a couple Chaos 2020s, and I picked up the Blue Water Black series, and I've been running those, and they have just kept my spreads like really, really nice. However, they're 8 foot long. Um, if you're solo, again, you got to be when you get when you get a fish on the board, and I'll tell clients this, when you're alone, you know, the shorter the better at points, because, you know, if you're using a 9-foot rod alone, you're going to have to be climbing up that rod to get that
Mm-hmm.
board an extra 2 feet. So when you're alone, think shorter, but also as, you know, a rod that's meant for it. You don't want something like a catfish rod back there that is just, you know, bent in a C while you're running a board. However, you know, if I was alone, I wouldn't be using my 9-foot trolling rod to keep it planing out, because I would know that, you know, at that time I'm not 9 foot tall to
Sure.
grab and release those boards like I was in the video there. It's a lot easier when you have two, but when you're alone, just think, you know, what's practical at the time. Sometimes it's practical to not run them, but just think, you know, that extra foot could be the extra millisecond that is between triumph and failure. So
Yeah. So you like a little stiffer rod for the planer boards?
I like a little stiffer rod. I just think it handles the boards better, and it puts your spread out there a lot nicer. You know,
Yeah.
it looks great, you know. And so I don't want something that's too bendy. I want something that's a little stiff. And I found that in those blue water rods in that Chaos 2020. And they're just 8-footers. They're nothing crazy. They're one piece. And you know, even if you have a 16-foot boat or whatnot, and you're going out trolling, I think 8's, you know, really good for
What
your boards.
what kind of leaders you running?
I run Trophy Time. I've been running those since they've come into existence. This time of year, we're using smaller stuff. I'll use either 4-foot or 36-inch 80-pounders with smaller stay locks on them, because a lot of the smaller baits, um, you know, won't take such a big stay lock on there.
Mhm.
So 80-pound, 3-foot, 4-foot. That's where I'm at with those right now.
What's what are your speeds you're running right now? I mean, what is your water temperatures?
So the water temperatures love to fluctuate early,
Mhm.
especially in reservoirs when you're in the shallows. You know, you can go from, you know, if you have a blitzing cold day, they'll maintain in around the 40s and low 40s. But if you get a sunny day, it'll warm those shallows up very fast.
Mhm.
I've seen 20-degree jumps in days before, from, you know, day 1 to 2. And I'm just like, man, I hope this doesn't, you know, mess with them like it messes with us, like out there on the water. But right now, it's with, you know, the cold and the wind, it's holding around 45 to 47, and that's what I'm dealing with right now.
Ours, yeah, it's funny if you're using like I have my Humminbird, my Helix on there, and then I
Yeah.
also have my Garmin
Mhm.
Panoptics unit. And it's funny because the Panoptics is deeper in the water.
Yeah.
You'll see in the spring, and the spring's really the only time you see it. You'll see a big swing in temperature just in that foot. Like the
Yeah.
Helix will be reading um the Helix will read like 52,
Yeah.
and the Panoptics is reading 48.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
Hmm.
just that surface temp is really heating up, especially the dirtier the water you see that, the clearer the water. Once that clear water warms up, that water temperature goes down through it a little bit and
Hmm.
actually insulates itself. So like in the real dirty stuff, you get a really drastic swing like that. And
Yeah.
you'll see some of those, guys will say, well, I found, you know 65-degree water. I'm like, yeah, but that ain't real.
It's not
That's
a real
just
reading, right? Yeah, of
that's
course. I
just
mean,
like,
you could do that with your trolling motor too. You know, when you drop that thing in and it's
mhm.
reading, you know, a couple extra feet, you can really see what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's you get such false stuff this time of year, and
I know, yeah,
it's
especially in the shallows.
Yeah, and then
You know?
you really kind of get a true reading on the colder days because that kind
Hmm.
of tells you, all right, this is what it actually is.
Yeah, and
And
I think that water temperature is very important for
sure,
how you're going to attack the day on whatever body of water you're going to be on.
yeah,
So it certainly before I put a plan together, before I step on the lake, I'm always concerned about wind direction, water temperature. Those are like the two things that I look at, and that's what I make a game plan from for that day.
you heard of anything good being caught this year yet?
Mm, yeah, I've seen some big ones caught on the. I mean, we got a couple good ones. We got a 48. We got a
Nice,
44 that was like at a 22-inch girth. It was
Jesus.
when you catch these things this time of year, that's why you fish for them. And we're lucky enough to be able to fish year round for them because our waterways are considered put and take, and that spawn really isn't happening. And
What?
you'll realize that when you fish reservoirs in our areas of how like chaotic it would be to spawn in those situations because of the temperature fluctuation, how it gets mucky, how there's a lack of weeds, things like that. But yeah, there's been some good ones caught. I would say that some very, very big pigs are caught. A lot of big ones caught from people that are live scoping and things like
Mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm,
They're catching fish in different areas than how I attack conventionally, and that's just
mm-hmm.
fine. But you know, the lakes we fish in, they're in there.
Yeah.
And
What? The bigger ones you got, like that 44, the 48. What were those fish on?
what were they on?
Yeah,
Like what I catch them on?
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's top secret.
Top secret. I
No,
get it.
I'm
Well,
kidding.
there's
They were on.
no
They
one
were on.
listens to this. My
Yeah.
mom is the only one that really, and she wants to get them.
They were on mini meatballs
Okay.
from Evan Shaw's. Yeah, I just love those things. They have like just a little scatter to them. They're easy to tune, and like I said, you can let line out, and it's not going to dive so deep when you're dealing with those.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with those
No,
depths.
those well, that's cool, man. Then, and you're dealing with pre-spawn fish. This is when
Mhm.
in your area, my area, this is when the fish are the biggest that they're going to be
Absolutely.
throughout the year. Guys talk about fall and fat, and
Yeah.
that's fine, but it's nothing like a big pre-spawn fish. That's when they weigh more than anything.
Anything, and that's why you do it this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's when I look at the months that I look forward to, it's always like early March and the first 3 weeks of April. I love
Mm-hmm.
them up here. And then I love June and of course November. But the November fish have nothing on what you catch in these
No,
reservoirs this time of year. They are
no.
just stocked to the gill. They've been holding those eggs for like 5 months. They're eating on top of that. And you can catch like a genetic freak like that 44. It probably weighed as much as the 48 that we got, and you're just sitting there looking at it, and you're looking at its head, and then you look at the body, and you're like, that's the body of like a 50 that's
Yeah, no.
hanging off the side, and you're just like, yeah, this is why you do it. They're just like stupid fat. It's so
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get it. And you weed through the tiny ones too. You'll
Oh
catch a
yeah,
24 incher.
yeah, the bread and
And
butter.
and then so you just get, you never really know, especially when those big females move up there, because there's all sizes of fish, and
Yeah.
anytime the rod goes off, it could be anything.
Hmm.
I know how this how this time of year works. So
Yes.
well, Vance, what if somebody wants to fish with you, how can they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me via the website. Just look up alldaymuskycharters.com. Like I said, I fished end of March to the end of November, split between Pennsylvania and then up in Chautauqua Lake for 6 months. And if you want to get out there and get on the books and get on some fish, give me a call. I'm out
All
there
right.
every day like a madman.
What's the website?
Say it again, brother.
What's the website?
Alldaymuskycharters.com.
Muskies with the Y.
Yep.
Do you want to give out your phone number?
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right.
You can get a hold of me at 412-580-2180.
All right.
That's
Well,
the quickest way.
good deal. Call, text, do all that. Shoot up
Yep.
shoot a skywriting signal up there. Skywriting is not always positive, though. Trust me on that one. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for coming on tonight. It sounds like you're already got a few nice fish in the boat. That's great. The spring's looking okay. We just got to get through this crazy this weather patch right now. I mean, it's literally spring fishing. You never know
what's going to happen.
And it, depending on what the atmosphere does. That's why guys say, "Oh, I bet you like a real warm spring." I go, "I like it warm, but I don't like it hot."
Yeah.
Because once you start getting the hot days in the spring, that just means the weather is going to do something stupid.
Oh, I know. I want something consistent. Make it consistently bad or consistently, nice.
Yes.
But we live in an area where that just does not happen.
Oh, our area is just a giant poop ball of stuff. So, no, it's part of it. So, all right, brother, I'm going to sign off here. I want you to stay on for me. But, yeah, it was good talking to you.
So, thanks for having me.